Hey guys, welcome back to this week's pool here on Comic Relief Cast. I am your host, Jake.
And I'm Josh. Hey, Jake, got a quick question for you.
What is that?
What are you thankful for?
I am thankful for all...
What are we reading?
Honestly, you got me that time. We did the one take and it kind of messed with me, and now you got me. But what I am thankful for is a lot of Marvel comics to go over. Guys, strap in, get comfortable. It's going to be a bumpy ride because there is a lot to go over this week from Marvel. And the things we're going to be going over is... Infinity Warp's Ghost Panther #1, The Punisher #4, Spider-Man Enter the Spiderverse #1, West Coast Avengers #4,
Ooh la la.
Spidergedon #4,
Yay.
Mr. and Mrs. X #5, Uncanny X-Men #2, Tony Stark Iron Man #6, Shuri #2, Web of Venom, Carnage Born #1, Immortal Hulk.
Nasty.
Shut up. #9. And finally, Marvel Knights #2 for the 20th anniversary. Getting right into it. Ghost Panther by Adam McKay, I believe, and Paolo.
Jed McKay.
Jed McKay, that's right. And Jeff Day Paolo. Josh, what are your thoughts on Ghost Panther #1?
It was kind of my same thoughts about like Weapon Hex, only but this was a little bit more interesting. For the most part, I don't know a whole lot of Ghost Rider mythos and Black Panther mythos for me to have fun with a lot of the amalgams that they put in it. But I mean, it's a cool premise. It's a forgettable premise at the same time. It's a forgettable issue. Let me rephrase that. And the art at times, it's decent at some points, but you can tell the artist tries really hard for a certain kind of style.
Yeah, this was not my favorite issue. I think the gimmick of Ghost Panther is the coolest thing out of the whole thing. And like you said, I'm not well versed in Ghost Rider or Black Panther mythology to where I'm like, oh yeah, I know who these amalgams are. So we actually went in depth and had to like look up a lot of who these people were because they're pretty deep cut characters, and they're not characters I'm all that familiar with. And like you said, I'm gonna have to kind of be an echo chamber here. Not a very memorable issue, not a great issue. The art at times is super distracting, and sometimes I just don't know what is going on that much. My biggest gripe though is honestly, you never see him on the Ghost Panther vehicle.
Right?
Like, you don't ever see him on a Panther-like motorcycle thing that they've got on the cover, which I was kind of looking forward to getting to, and you never get that in this book.
Yeah, the art at times, it's like, when it comes to creepy creatures and stuff like that, it started to sound like Vincent Price. Creepy creature. But when it comes to like creatures and stuff like that, it looks cool, but the artist is not good at drawing people. It just, yeah, like the proportions of the way the body is built, the way he draws them, you almost feel like he might have
scrunched up looking faces like they just sucked on a lemon.
It kind of makes you feel like he's trying way too hard to get this like Sorrentino, Lemire, there's another artist, McFarlane. Like he's trying to add all this stuff and kind of combine them. And I'm not talking about like new McFarlane. I'm talking like early McFarlane, where he was still not doing body proportions 100% correctly.
Yeah.
Or the way that you would see him on the streets, you know.
Right, yeah. This issue did not get me all that excited. I mean, the idea of combining these two characters is cool. The idea is cool. There are some fun stuff. They really play up more, I think, the Ghost Rider mythology than anything else. You know, he takes on the name of Johnny Blaze. He's doing like the whole circus thing. He's Xanathos, I can't remember the name. You know, that becomes a big character. And then for some reason you got Brother Voodoo in here, who to me is not really Ghost Rider or Black Panther specific, so I thought that was kind of an interesting named character to kind of amalgam with Crash. So with that, Josh, I'm going to let you unveil this week's rating episode and give it your rating.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give this one a 2.5 Groot bones.
Booms or bones?
Booms.
Booms, okay.
Like
2.5?
snap.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. 2.5 Groot booms. It's not the worst thing, not the greatest thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things when I read it, I'm like, I know a few of our regulars will enjoy this book.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like, you're not going to hate yourself for picking it up, but you're also not going to be like, man, that was...
It's not going to be your most prized possession that you have in your comic book collection.
No. All right, moving on to The Punisher #4 by from Matt Rosenberg, and the artist is Szymon Kudranski. And Kudranski's doing a great job here in the art. Like, I mean, this
We have a
is...
regular who's actually become quite a pen pal with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as of lately,
We'll talk about that more later. But no, doing a great job. And what I'm loving about this is just all-out war. Actually, they're calling this mini arc, I think, the first 5 issues is World War Frank. And this thing is just awesome. It's gruesome. This is what you kind of want from a Punisher comic book. You want to know, why is this guy unkillable? Why is it just a dude with a bunch of guns who no one's ever been able to take down? This book shows you why. Because he's smart, he's tactile, he knows what he's doing. He's taking on Jigsaw, he's taking down Hydra. There's a little bit of very, like, it's the underpinnings are political, but it's not so in your face that you're going to pay attention to it. It's just something that I kind of noticed, something that the writer's doing a little bit. But this book is just so well thought out. It's so well written. The art is great. I'm loving the way that that Kudransky kind of just lays out these books, because it is very cinematic. It feels like I'm watching a movie, a Punisher movie, while I'm reading this book. And like I said, it's smartly written, and it's gruesome, and it's gory, and it's brutal, and I love all that. That's what you need from a Punisher book. This is definitely one of the strongest Punisher entries in a long time, if you ask me. I'm going to go ahead and give this one 3.6 Groot Booms.
Nice. All right, and I read Spider-Man Enter the Spiderverse #1. Writer is Ralph Macchio, not that Macchio, and the artist is Flavino.
Oh, it's like Cher, just one word.
This one,
Flavino.
our Todd.
Okay.
Yeah. This book has nothing to do with Spidergedon, just so people know. It has nothing to do with Spidergedon, but it also has nothing to do with the Into the Spider-Verse movie.
How do you know that?
Because I read it.
Okay.
And I feel like that's a good valid point enough. This is actually just a one kind of shot story, just supposed to be for fun. It's about the Web Warriors, which was out like after the Spiderverse, the first Spiderverse, and it's following Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Spider-Punk, Spider-Ham, and Spider-Gwen. In this, they are on this mission to find a character that was sent away back in Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 103, I believe is what it was, that was sent away by Reed Richards. It's a fun story. It definitely feels more like this is going to be better for a kid, especially a kid who is getting excited for the movie Into the Spider-Verse. It just kind of introduces you to the characters that's going to be in there.
Companion piece for something that you want to pick up.
Yeah, and and the way that it's not fantastic writing. It reminds me of like an episode from a kid's Spider-Man cartoon. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. It's one of those classic Josh moments where I say that this was written for somebody else, not for me. I can definitely see this being a good book if you have a kid who is interested in Spider-Man or excited about the movie. This would be a book to pick up to kind of just give you like a little one-off tale that introduces these characters that's going to be in the movie for you. At the end of this book, there is supposed to be they say it's a preview for the new Miles Morales Spider-Man comic coming out, but I feel like it was actually almost the whole issue because it was long, which sounds like it, from what I read, looks like it's going to be a pretty good ongoing series. With all this being said, I'm going to give this a 2.5 Groot Booms.
How do you feel of it being a $4.99 issue as opposed to a $3.99 issue?
I think it's definitely worth it. You get a lot. I mean, the main story is a pretty decent sized story, and you are getting a decent chunk of the first issue of Spider-Man with Miles Morales.
Okay. All right, moving on to the West Coast Avengers #4 by Kelly Thompson and Stefano Caselli. And this is one of those ones, if you guys have been listening to us for any period of time, you know that this was one of those series that kind of surprised us. We did not think we were going to like it. Then we read it. We really like it. It's starting to tail off a little bit in quality. It's kind of starting to lose some of that fun that it had. Like it is still fun, but it's kind of losing that unique kind of quirkiness that it had originally. And it's kind of... it's going more, this issue at least, is going straight up more into your just kind of straight beat 'em up romp. And, you know, it's taking down Brodok, it's big giant monsters on the West Coast. It is a lot of fun. It does feel, I will say, it does feel fresh for it to be on the West Coast as opposed to in New York. It definitely has more of a West Coast feel to me, and I do like that. The characters are doing pretty well, but the whole shtick, the gimmick of them kind of being on a reality TV show, which they actually do address, something that they like in Civil War with the New Warriors. That was what was going on. I thought that was a nice little nod. They say,
yeah,
they kind of, as a little aside, they put that in here. That has really lost its muster for me because it was something I thought, okay, this is a unique tale, this is a unique way, and it was being used effectively. In the past couple issues, I feel like that's kind of fallen by the wayside. It's not something that's really effective in the storytelling anymore. It's not really getting across the characters that it was utilizing that tool before, and now we're not so much getting that anymore. What do you think?
I think that it's the like beating a dead horse kind of thing. It was good when it was good. It was fresh. It was nice to have in the first few issues, but now it's getting to a point where it's kind of distracting from the rest of the storytelling. I do kind of like the premise, but I hope that this is going to be the end of that. I hope that Kelly Thompson realizes that now it's kind of like I said, beating a dead horse. It was like, we got it. It was fun. Now let's go on with the rest of the story.
I just want them to, if they're going to keep utilizing it, I want them to keep doing it in a way that serves the story. If it makes it something unique, it makes it something that's a little bit different than everything else that you're reading out there. But it doesn't really serve much of a function anymore. But I will say, the one thing that's bothering me is we don't know who's interviewing these people. We don't know who's asking the questions, because they are talking to the people interviewing them, and they're answering back. So you're reading their dialogue, but we have no idea who it is. But what this issue does set up in the very end has me very, very excited, because one of the villains that they're teasing for the next arc is something that I really like. As a character I really like from the Iron Man series. So that's something that definitely has my interest. Not the strongest ending to the first arc for West Coast Avengers, but still enough to make me go, I'll keep reading just to see where this goes.
Yeah, I feel like this is just kind of a nice, it's not the greatest way to wrap the present, but it was, it wasn't a little arc, and I am still intrigued by it, and it definitely does end with, you can tell, like, this first arc was mostly just to kind of introduce the idea of the team and who is all on the team.
Yeah. All right, and with that, what is your rating for this issue?
2.75 Groom Boot.
Okay, I'm going a little higher. I'm going 2.9 Group Booms. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Well, you know what? Let me rephrase that. I'm going to go 2.85.
Jesus.
Okay, I'm going up because there is a pretty awesome cameo in there that I was pretty excited about.
From who?
I don't want to spoil it.
Okay, fine. It's not crossed my mind right now.
Late night.
Huh?
Late night.
Yeah, not... Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
You're
okay.
Just on the page.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That was kind of neat. Yeah. All right, moving on to another Kelly Thompson book for me, Mr. and Mrs. X #5. Now, interestingly enough, I thought this was just going to be a 5-issue miniseries, and then it was going to, end. But actually, this series is going to continue on. I don't know for how long, but there is going to be an issue 6 after this. But this is kind of wrapping up the first arc where Gambit, Rogue, they find this egg thing that the Shi'ar Empire is looking for. It turns out it's kind of part Professor X, kind of part Lilandra, and it's got powers from both sets, and the Shi'ar Empire wants this egg, which turns into a little girl or a young girl, to kind of come and be a property of the Shi'ar Empire, possibly even lead the Shi'ar Empire. Rogue and Gambit are kind of tasked with the idea that we got to keep her safe from the Shi'ar, and there's even Cersei who comes, not Cersei, it's like Cersei, but she wants to come in and like save this little girl, Xandra. Her name is Xandra in the book. This little first mini-series, or first mini arc or whatever, it was okay. It was good. What was going on, the spectacle of it really didn't interest me much, but like the interplay between Rogue and Gambit, the interactions they had, the conversations they're talking about, what I like about it is it feels very real. It feels very much something that real couples, the conversations real couples have, the fights that real couples have. Maybe it's a little exaggerated for the comic book superhero stuff, but I like the interplay between them. The only thing that's really weird to me is that Kelly Thompson lost the dialect for Rogue in the writing, and then at the very end of this issue, she kind of brings it back. And I thought, why have you not been consistent? You were really consistent with it in Rogue and Gambit, those 5 issues, and here you kind of started it off, and then you just completely abandoned it, kind of like Elizabeth Olsen in her accent in Infinity War. Like, she just doesn't do the Scarlet Witch thing anymore. At the very end, you kind of hear it come back for some reason. But in this one, I like this, and I'm going to keep reading Mr. and Mrs. X. I do like what's going on here. I love the Dodson covers. I think those are great. And I just like the dynamic between Rogue and Gambit. Rogue seems to have herself a new power. Not a new power, but her powers have evolved. And it's bringing a new issue, a new problem with her powers, and it's keeping it a little fresh for me. So the overall first arc, I'm going to say I'll give it 3.2. This issue, I'd probably go about 2.7. Group Booms.
I read Spidergedon #4 by Christos Gage and Jorge Molano and Carlo. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so Spidergedon is kind of falling off a little bit. It's becoming
Was it ever on?
It was.
Okay.
There was a moment where you kind of enjoyed it.
All right.
That you didn't rip up a comic. But no, it's lost. It's kind of losing its flavor. And It's becoming a very vanilla storyline, very vanilla event, and it's really bad because Marvel's oversaturated their market with this Spidergedon, and the event is not eventful. It's very forgettable.
They've basically done the Clone Saga without calling it the fucking Clone Saga. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they did Spiderverse, but they're just trying to ride on the coattails of Spiderverse. This issue in general wasn't as bad as the last issue. This one actually felt like it was its own thing, but it felt like this should have been like an issue 3. The one thing that was really good that kind of makes this book standable for most people who are the Spider fans is that Superior Spider-Man is a big part of this issue, and there's a beautiful covers with Superior Spider-Man on the covers. And that's the main reason why I know I'm reading it, and I know a couple of our regulars are reading it because Superior Spider-Man's in it. And it's definitely, this issue's definitely better because of that, but other than that, that's not saying a whole lot. I mean, it's still a very vanilla issue. This event, I feel like, by the end of it, will be kind of forgettable. And with that being said, I'm going to give this one a 2.45 Groot Booms.
All right, so not a huge fan of it, are you?
I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's not like I'm upset that I'm buying it.
You're falling off. All right, moving on to Uncanny
You want me
X-Men
to fall off
number
on it.
2. I'm so sick of the Spider-Getting shit. Uncanny X-Men number 2 by Ed Brisson, Matt Rosenberg, Kelly Thompson, and a bunch of other names. I don't know why there's so many things being written here, or so many writers on here anyway. But this is, again, it's one of those weekly titles for 10 weeks. So if you jumped on issue 1, you're going to get issue 2. Prepare to be getting 10 of these issues every week for 10 weeks, obviously. But this is continuing off straight off the last one, and this one's definitely giving you, it's more focused than the last issue. I'll say that. It seems like it's focusing on one story arc at one story that's happening. Yes, you're kind of going in between groups, but it all seems to be handling the same thing. Still don't know what's going on with Jamie Madrox, what's going on with all these creatures and stuff that are coming out of the woodwork. We don't know what's going on there, but I'm liking the writing here. I'm liking the way the characters are interacting. This is starting to feel a little bit more like an X-Men book that I would want to read. It's got a little bit more excitement to it. It's got the characterizations seem right to me. What do you think, Josh?
I agree. I don't know if it was this book in general or if it was just the fact that I'm reading it, but one thing after when I was reading it was I missed reading an X-Men title. I haven't been reading one for a while just because I haven't really liked any of them. I liked the beginning of Astonishing, but that's about it. And this one wasn't a bad issue. I mean, it was it felt like an X-Men comic, but it felt like it had kind of like that 90s, the way the 90s X-Men comics kind of felt, the way it was written and stuff. And the art was actually pretty good, too.
Yeah, I was looking at R.B. Silva as the name, and I recognize his art, but I can't honestly pinpoint where. I want to say X-Men, not X-Men Red, but on another X title I read not too long ago. But yeah, I'm liking this book. It's, it's got some stuff. It feels like it's doing a lot of the same stuff we've seen the X-Men do, but in a sense that it's almost paying homage, or it's going back to kind of the good old days of the X-Men a little bit, like you're saying. So with that, Josh, what would you rate this issue?
I would rate this issue 2.95 Groot Booms.
Okay, I'm a little bit higher than you. I enjoyed this. Plus, any listeners that are going to be curious about this, we do have a bet going on at who is at the end of issue 1, and it's not answered here in this book, but I have a pretty good idea of who it was. You seem to have an idea of who it was. I feel like this issue might debunk who you think it was. So if you guys were curious at all about X-Men, Uncanny X-Men number 1 and who might be at the end of it and what they're teasing, this will answer a little bit of that at the end of the book. So if you're all curious, definitely pick this up. I'm going to go a little higher than Josh. I'm going to go 3.15 Groot Booms. I did like it.
Yeah. I read Shuri number 2, and you're going to have to help me with that name.
Screw it, just go on.
Okay, yeah. Shuri number 2. This one kind of follows up after the first issue. It definitely follows right up after the last issue where T'Challa has been missing in space with Manifold, and they are asking her to take on the mantle of Black Panther again. And she does not want to take on that mantle because last time she died in that suit, so she doesn't want to do it again. But it's following her as she's teaming up with Storm, and they are going to try to figure out how they can find T'Challa. Now, T'Challa's been missing because if you've been reading Black Panther, he's lost. You don't quite know exactly how he got there, but it seems like he has been time traveled to a different time where Wakanda is an intergalactic empire, and nobody knows who he is. They don't believe that he's a Black Panther because the Black Panther has been gone for years. So it's definitely a good companion to the Black Panther series if you're reading the Black Panther series. My only gripe about this book is, I mean, I like the art style somewhat. It's too cartoony at times, but I don't like the fact that they make Shuri look so young. They're trying to kind of make it look kind of like the movie, but the thing is when you're reading this, you kind of feel like that's what they're doing, that they're rebooting this character to make her younger. But really, like, all the stuff that they put in there, they put in the mythos of her having been the Black Panther before, and it's kind of like, well, she looks awfully young to have had all her history already been done. Like, she should be in her like late 30s at least. Yeah. With that being said, this is actually not that bad of a book. It's a good story, and I am reading Black Panther, and this is a nice little companion to have to the Black Panther book. I feel like this is going to answer some questions that's in that storyline, and I'm going to give this a 3 group booms.
All right, moving on to Tony Stark Iron Man number 6. It is the first part of a new story arc called Stark Realities Part 1. And one of the things that I was kind of reading this going, okay, you know, how am I going to tackle this book? I'm going to look at it as, is this a good jumping on point for anybody who hasn't been picking up Tony Stark Iron Man? Yes and no. There are some things that are addressed here that you definitely want knowledge of from before, but this does feel like kind of a fresh new entrance into the Tony Stark Iron Man stuff, because while there is stuff that's carried over, there's a lot of new stuff that's introduced, and it's very self-contained on what's being introduced here in this book. Now, what's going on is Tony he's inventing this new thing called the E-scape, which is a lot like the Oasis in something like Ready Player One, but a lot more sophisticated and you know, part of the Marvel Universe. And it seems to be making a lot of commentary on the way the internet is being used today, the way people misuse the internet, mishandle the internet, and just the way people interact that way. There's some commentary on both sides of that argument and whether or not, you know, it's valid. And, you know, there's also personal struggles going on, a lot of it being between Tony and his birth mom, Amanda Connor. Not Amanda Connor, just Amanda. I can't remember her last name right now. But the art is great in here. I actually forgot to say that this book is written by Dan Slott and Jeremy Whitley. The artist is Valerio Schiti, and the color artist actually has to be given some love too, Edgar Delgado, because it's really well done. And these covers have been magnificent. I don't know if you guys have been looking at these Tony Stark Iron Man covers, but each cover is absolutely beautiful, and that is done by Alexandra Lozano. So just want to give a huge shout out to that guy because been killing it lately. But this book is actually really good, and I'm loving the way Dan Slott is able to take these supporting characters of the main hero and make them big parts of the story where they can have a lot of screen or a lot of time to themselves in the book, and you don't feel like, okay, I want to get back to the hero. It seems like, honestly, Tony Stark is only in this book here and there. A lot of what's going on in this book has to do and surrounds with a lot of the peripheral characters, the side characters, the ensemble cast, and I really like that about this. But it also goes back into the E-scape, the virtual reality that everyone kind of plugs into, kind of like if you were to go into something like Call of Duty and everybody plays in the Call of Duty world. That's kind of what this is, but with tons of different lands. It's a lot of fun. It's a good read. Finally, stuff from issue 1 is also coming back and starting to make sense. And there's also this one character who's a complete asshat in the E-scape, who's just this shit-talking, foul-mouthed kid who's a big tough guy behind his headphones and his little controller, but we find out in real life he's just a little punk. I love stuff like that. I think it makes it for a lot of fun. So this particular issue 6, I'm going to give it 3.3 group booms, and as an entry point of Tony Stark Iron Man, not the greatest entry point, but still a book I would recommend. Moving on to Web of Venom, Carnage, born by Donny Cates and Danilo S. Beyruth. And now, I think Josh and I are really going to differ here on this book, because my thing was, I'm reading this going, okay, this is like a one-shot. Yeah, it's Web of Venom, but it's a one-shot. It's not its own series. So can I have read this without reading the Venom issue, the Venom series that's going on with Donny Cates? My answer is absolutely not.
I agree. The marketing for this book is really bad. This is literally supposed to be like Venom number 9.
This should have been the next issue.
Yeah, this should have been the next, because this picks up almost right where the last issue of Venom ends. So if you're picking this up thinking that this is going to be a one-shot Carnage book or history on Carnage or something, it's not. It's definitely a book that is supposed to be going with the Venom series.
Yeah, and for $4.99, this book really let me down. I'm going, okay, cool. I'm going to read a new little Carnage issue, something that's like going to bring the character back, kind of make him interesting again, and no. This book I honestly kind of pissed me off. Because what they're doing is they're making like Venom has this cult now, the symbiote Null King or whatever, the King of the Gods, or what is he? Is a symbiote god, right? Null.
He's the god of the abyss.
Of the abyss, okay. Void. And now he's got this cult following here on Earth, and they're very, fucking Jim Jones kind of characters. And now they're rewriting the history of Cletus Cassidy as this guy who was destined to be this vessel for bringing Null back and shit like that. I'm like, I hate that. I hate that idea that Cletus Cassidy wasn't just some random psychopath who, by happenstance, got merged with the symbiote, and then he became this crazy, superpowered murderous psychopath. I don't like rewriting characters like that, especially when they're destined to do something. I hate that kind of shit, and that really bugged me in this book.
See, for me, I just take that with like a small grain of salt because, I mean, when's the last time that you actually listened to a group of like people in like a cult and go, you know what, they're right? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
but I don't care, but that's
what they believe.
Doesn't matter. That's the premise this book is setting up. It's almost outside of what the cult believes, and it's like the book is just saying, he's almost this Messiah-like character because he was born and then he died and he was resurrected. It's just all this dumb shit. And I'm like, no, Cletus Cassidy is just some murderous psychopath with red hair.
Let's see, the one thing about that Cletus Cassidy, though, there's not a whole lot of background on him. I mean,
it doesn't matter. I don't like the idea of the chosen one and the destiny. That's what ruined Darth Vader.
Yeah, but see, the thing for me is it's a cult that's saying it. It's not like it was written on some like scribe. It's not
like the end of this book denies it either. It's not like the end of this book is like, oh no, that was a bunch of horseshit. It's just a bunch of malarkey. No, it's like
it's just setting up your premise of what's going to be happening in the next the Venom issues to come. Me personally, I liked it. I thought it wasn't a bad issue. I thought it was pretty cool. The only thing I hate about it is just the fact that they market it as if it's going to be like the V&M, where it's like you don't have to be reading Venom to kind of jump on and buy this book and get it. It just seemed like it was a way for you to buy a Venom issue for $4.99 instead of $3.99.
Yeah, and then one thing I was of two minds of this book. That part really pissed me off. It bothered me that I'm like, okay, Cletus Cassidy is not this predestined messiah of the symbiotes. But there is some other parts of this that I think are really cool. Some ideas that I think are really cool. Those being that everybody who's ever worn a symbiote, part of their DNA has been altered in that now, you can kind of hunt down those people who have worn symbiotes before due to just like a hive mind, almost social network between the different symbiotes. I think that kind of stuff is cool. When you started elaborating more and more on those types of ideas, I really dug it. And the way this book ends makes me go, this is going to be really cool. If you would have just scrapped the entire idea that Cletus Cassidy was some messiah, I think this book would be great.
See, like I said, it was like only like a one panel thing.
And bullshit! It was like the first 5-6 pages of this book.
See, I didn't view it like that.
What do you think you didn't view it like that?
I mean, I viewed it like
exactly how it is.
That's how they just like talked about it. But just when it comes to the whole cult thing, it's like I'm not really listening to the cult and taking what they say.
Literally, the first 25-30% of this book is the cult talking about Cletus Cassidy being like the chosen one.
Yeah, I think it's just mostly just dealing with the fact that his blood combined with the symbiote. But for the most part, I mean, that part did not deter me away from the book. And I really do not care a whole lot about Carnage or Cletus Cassidy for it to really really piss me off. But for the most part, I mean, I do like that premise that you're talking about that you really like is what the whole Venom thing has been, like Venom book has been leading up to. But like I said, to me, when I hear cult talk and everything, like, so these cult, the way I'm viewing it is like a bunch of Scientologists.
Well,
sitting here preaching something, and it's like I'm not really paying attention to what they're saying.
I'm docking my grade now even more of this book because you being so dismissive. I wish I had your selective memory. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one 1.9 group booms. Probably would have been a 2.4.
Okay. I'm giving it 3 group booms.
All right, moving on to the Immortal Hulk, number 9 by Al Ewing and Joe Bennett, and actually another artist, Martin Simmons. Now, as you guys know, we've been loving Immortal Hulk. This has been a great series. Of course, you got all the Alex Ross covers, which have been awesome too. This book is focusing a lot on the past couple months, what's going on with Hulk, and what's going on with the Absorbing Man, Crusher Creel. Now, what I really like about this book is that you're starting to get a lot more internal monologue, internal dialogue from the Hulk. Not Bruce Banner, but the Hulk. The Hulk is a thinking, sentient being on his own. He's separate from Banner, yet there is still some shared experiences, and I really like the idea that they're going back to the place where he was first born, where Hulk was first given life back in the Gamma base where they tested the bomb. I love that. The stuff set up with Crusher Creel, interesting. Not the most exciting thing, but it seems to be setting up the next arc of the Hulk, and it's also still bringing in some elements that were in issues 2, 3, 4, whatever. So this is again, it looks like Al Ewing is like doing this long form storytelling with kind of little mid-tier baddies here and there.
Yeah, the book, for the most part, was actually pretty good. It wasn't my favorite Immortal Hulk issue.
No, last issue was my favorite.
The one thing, I understand why people do it. They have this thing where they like have the artist switch back and forth. I feel like it's very distracting for most readers. It was a little distracting in this book. Don't get me wrong. I dig both artists, and I liked what they did. It's just, I feel like when you're going back, and it's not like it's like half the book is in one person, half the other. It's like one page is, one artist, and the next page is the next artist. It's very fast how it goes back and forth, and I feel like that can get a little confusing. The premise is kind of cool, but I felt like it took a long time to get to the part that is really cool.
Yeah, but I was honestly okay with that because you're building the backstory with Crusher Creel, and for me that wasn't boring. I found it interesting because to me, the Absorbent Man has not really ever been a character I've been that interested in. I don't really care too much about him. He's somebody I just never gave a second thought to. So giving him a little bit more agency in the book didn't bother me at all. I was just like, this is kind of cool. I like reading that. So,
maybe I would have liked it if they just kept it all in one spot and then they put all the Hulk's shit.
Yeah, it does go back and forth.
If it wasn't
time
back and
jumping
forth,
for sure. But also, I also like that the idea that they're bringing back certain elements of the Red Hulk from before. They're acknowledging the Red Hulk, Thaddeus Ross, stuff like that. So if you guys are wondering why Absorbent Man is red on the cover, they're starting to mess a little bit with the idea of some of the things that were going on with the Red Hulk back in the day when that was very prominent. But what would you give this book as overall rating?
I'd give it about a 3 group booms.
Yeah, I gotta say, with dealing with like this monster book, this supernatural elements, especially towards the end, the supernatural elements really start to kick in, and a little bit more of that grotesque horror imagery.
The stuff
starts
that I feel like that makes this book good, it doesn't actually happen till towards the end of the book.
Well, you're not as much for characterization as I am in building character.
Oh no, I totally dig building character. It's just the way that they built the character was like distracting.
Oh, I found it fine. So I'm gonna give this one 3.8 group booms.
Oh, cool.
All right, moving on to Marvel Knights by actually Matt Rosenberg and Donny Cates was just kind of more overseeing the story, but the Matt Rosenberg was actually the scriptwriter. So he's doing a lot of writing right now, and the artist is Nico Henrikon, I think. I don't know. But this one actually picks up directly after issue 1. There is no lag time. Like, you pick up right where you left off with Daredevil and Karen. And I was, honestly, my first thing was like, please don't be bringing Karen back. Please don't be bringing her back. And then you kind of find out, okay, she's a ghost. She's intangible. Daredevil's just having some crazy, problems and illusions, and he's trying to get his bearings here on what the hell is going on. And then a lot of this book is actually focused on, not a lot, but a good portion of it is focused on Frank Castle. Frank Castle is kind of the character we as the audience navigate this story with. He's how we meet Bruce Banner. He's how we're meeting Electro Nachos, which has a pretty badass interaction in here, getting maybe a little tease of Hulk, but then at the end Daredevil's back. He's maybe got his memory back. We're not really sure, but what they tease us with at the end is kind of something I'm scared of. What do you think of this book, Josh?
I thought it was good. I like the Frank Castle like explaining what happened before the first issue and him and how he met up with Bruce Banner. And kind of like his problem with the whole situation. This book does nothing but intrigue you more on wanting to know what exactly is going on. The first issue, I feel like, does kind of grasp you, and then it's not until the end when they reveal something that you start getting like, okay, now I'm intrigued. But this whole issue just kind of makes it even more like, now I need to know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely one of those books that just builds a lot of intrigue. You're kind of wondering, how is this going on? Are we going to get any answers? And we were talking the last time afterwards of issue 1 about what happened in this world. And we were talking about how it was almost like a reverse thing what happened with the Sentry, right? Like everyone was forced to forget in the world that the Sentry ever existed, which is why when they brought him in the new Avengers, no one knew who he was. the whole world was forced to forget. Now it's like the whole superhero community has been forced to forget all the superheroes themselves, and like they're all leading these just normal lives. And I think that's kind of cool because Marvel Knights was always supposed to be grounded in reality. Like back about 20 years ago, Marvel Knights was like their more grounded, street level take on these characters. And now you don't really get any more grounded and street level than these people just leading normal lives. I think it's kind of an interesting homage to that idea, but it's also playing up the idea that these characters were superheroes at one point.
I feel like, my theory on this is from the last Sentry issue, there's the device that makes him, like, he uses it at night and it kind of keeps Sentry at bay and keeps him in this world where the Sentry gets to live in. And I feel like that is maybe has some play in this.
It's possible.
I feel like that these people are actually trapped in that device
without any memory of their previous lives. Yeah, it's very possible. I don't know what's going on, but I'm excited to see how this all unravels. And of course, there's that great variant cover out with Elektra or with Punisher and Bullseye on it. Had to get that for myself. I would recommend any readers pick up those because they're connecting variant covers that's going to spell out Knights. It's going to look really good. But Josh, what would you rate Marvel Knights #2?
I give it 3.55.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 3.8 group booms. I really enjoyed it. Maybe not as much as issue 1, but that's probably only because we didn't get enough answers in the way this book ends. I'm a little nervous. So, guys, that is all we've got for you today. I know this was a long one. There was a lot to go over. A ton of books came out from Marvel. So we really hope you listened this far. If you did, please hit that like button. Or, hey, hit that thumbs down button if you didn't like any of the shit that we said. Share this with any of your comic book reading friends. Let us know in the comments below. Are you going to be planning on picking any of the books up that we have talked about? Have you already picked them up? Have you read them? What are your thoughts? And, of course, guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We hit a landmark over the last week. We hit over 800 subscribers. Now we're there firmly, and we're going to be moving on to 900. Really appreciate all the support, and make sure you check out the DC video on the channel as well for this week.
I'm a turkey. Eat me.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys, and take care.